Everyone loves that clickety-clack coming down the track. They can't ignore that all aboard is hope pouring out the stack. Hear that whistle blow as the train pulls out of the station. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel Nation. Clouds of smoke are rising high into a big blue sky. Down the line, right on time, a train is rolling by. Everyone turns around and stares in anticipation. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's the Lionel Nation.
Welcome to Lionel Nation Part 2. We have a great show for you. We'll visit John Potter's colorful pre-war layout, take a behind-the-scenes look at a toy train auction, then cruise over to Norm Charbonneau's incredible high-rail weathered toy train layout. We'll cover the new Conventional Classic series, plus a lot more, including Lionel's amazing model of Amtrak's Excella.
Engine shining gleam, that mighty sound and steam. Pistons pound around and round, just like in a dream. Another train pulls in and arrives at its destination. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel Nation. It's clear to me, oh can't you see, it's a Lionel Nation.
We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. Lionel Nation Part 2. All aboard!
One good thing about doing train layout stories, and we've been doing layout stories for over 20 years, is that you get to see totally different approaches. And you know something? Each has their own special appeal. From the latest in super detailed and electronically sophisticated layouts like Norm Charbonneau's, which you'll see later in the show, to a totally toy train layout like John Potter's. We like both. That's why it's difficult to answer when people ask, what's your favorite layout? Looking back, there's something special to remember and like about every layout we've ever covered. Back in 1993, when we were producing our video magazine Toy Train Review, we visited John Potter's pre-war layout and collection. Since then, John has added a garage to the south side of his home and built a new train room above the garage.
The train room we built is 24 feet by 32 feet with a 12-foot ceiling. The layout, which stands in the middle, is 11 feet wide by 16 feet long at 54 inches off the floor. Well, essentially, the perimeter room involves a series of glass display cases holding many different variations of O-gauge trains. Display cases are underneath the layout itself, holding from one case specializes in the American Flyer streamliners. Another case covers a lot of the 1936 to 39 versions of things. Underneath the actual train board, besides the display cases, consists of storage areas for set boxes. There's probably 75 or 80 different set boxes that are available to be seen. Many more boxes are actually stored under the train table itself, some of the more common sets. I built in a 12-foot long built-in display case when I constructed the room using salvage cases from a local store. These cases themselves hold some of the finer pieces of Lionel, from the trolleys to the hand cars to the cranes, along with my collection of early German Schuko toys. Well, the track design and the layout basically represents what is classically called a department store style layout, whereas the ultimate goal is to get the visual of the trains running and to display the product, i.e. the Lionel merchandise. So what I have is a standard gauge loop that runs on the outer side, which basically handles, all of the standard gauge. There's a small passing siding so you can hide some trains and cars. And just inside of that loop is the major stations that Lionel produced, from the 115s to the 112s to a 129 carat. The layout in its own way is my way of showcasing all the variations and different things that Lionel offered to the customer as an accessory. I sometimes find the accessories add even more fun to the trains than I think the trains are. There is a large amount of the variations of lamps and street lights available. Along with the lamps, of course, you have to have the stations. And there's, from the large stations to the small here, just trying to showcase at least one example of each different grouping that was available. Got 3 different variations of the 440 signal bridge, from the common terracotta one to the rare late 044N, which has got the gray superstructure on it. Once again, if there's 2 different variations, I try to find them. I've incorporated the American Flyer long Salt Lake type trestle bridges because they're just so nice looking with a train running through them. And I've actually got the standard gauge version and the O gauge version. And then I augment the bridge line off with a set of 317 tin bridges and then a couple of fast skill bridges. The standard gauge loop is the outer one. Then there are 3 other loops of the O gauge. The first one is a wide radius O gauge loop, which I personally put in with no switches on it. This fork, it eliminates any derailment problems. Then inside of that, there is a loop of tubular track, which is on an 054 curve to try to make everything kind of run together in ease. And that is then inside of that is a layout section which has 042 curve track and, basically handles 3 variations of the O gauge trains. And that center section actually runs in through a pair of Baskill bridges, one in silver, one in gray. They have yet to operate correctly because of the complicated working system has eluded me. I haven't figured it out. I'm gonna. Sitting behind it is an original 195 display piece, which has 3 houses on it and a couple of street lights. Once again, the piece was found at York. The guy didn't know what to do with it. He couldn't get it back in his truck. I bought it home thinking that I could salvage parts off it because I didn't think it was original because he sold it to me for $75. And then I realized it had 4 Lionel tags on it. And I've recently seen a guy asking over $3,000 for that little piece. Now, there are some rare mountains in the layout. There's the large and impressive number 140L located in one corner for the standard gauge. This mountain is made out of tin plate, and it's just huge. Down on the other end of the layout is the paper mache. It's lighter and probably a lot less expensive to make. Then you've got the 130 metal tunnel, which is the O gauge version of the 140, sitting down in one corner. There's a couple of the 917 and 918 scenic hillsides, which were offered by Lionel and probably didn't sell very well because they don't seem to exist much anymore. But
here are a few more items in John's collection you don't see much anymore, especially with their original boxes. Here's a boxed 192 accessory set consisting of 2 191 and 2 lithograph 184 bungalows. A boxed 163 freight station platform set. The deluxe 4-car 800 series freight set with litho display piece. A 186 deluxe bungalow 5-pack. Both O and standard gauge telegraph pole sets. Number 808 boxed freight set with 6 800 series four-wheel freight cars. The rare 5th Avenue 57th Street lamp. And a box of Lionel 47-73 replacement lamps. The 840 power station is very desirable and difficult to find in such good condition. This rare 219 crane came with the window towards the front. Most 219s have the window towards the rear. The 118 tin tunnel is rare. This version, with a house on the side, is extremely rare. Here are 2 Lionel dealer displays, both made of cardboard and both extremely hard to find. This one is complete. This one is not. It is missing engineer Bob Butterfield rising above the roundhouse. This rare Ives crossing signal was given to John by a friend in return for a favor. One in worse condition recently sold at auction for $2,800. See, it pays to do favors. There's the number 5B test set and the extremely rare 435 Edison power station.
Over the layout are 3 of the American Flyer Structo 1926 to 30 tin airplanes. And then there's the 55 Lionel airplane in the middle, which is just fun. Takes up way too much room. People do a green or AstroTurf or some sort of green. You know, you put down the green, everything gets lost and the greens disappear. We're trying to find a color that was just a tick off everything else. The color is called Georgian Brick Red. It's a different color for a layout, but it works for us. Then it showed up, and everything does. It just kind of pops. Dealing in the standard gauge things is there's varying levels of collecting. There's an operator. There's a collector who hangs it on the wall and stares at it. There's operator collectors, which is what I consider myself. And then there's those that put it behind glass and pray to it every Tuesday. Now, the prices are according. You know, if you're going to be an operator, you're able to tolerate a little scratch or a play value, or the fact that the train was loved and played with by someone else and not have it bother you. If you're on the other end of the scale, where you're the collector who puts it behind glass, you become intolerant of damage, of scratches, of rust, of any wear. And for that privilege, you will pay 4 to 5 times what an operator would pay for the same piece. Who's going to have more fun? That's a question that the guy who pays and plays has to operate and decide what they want to do. I enjoy original Lionel versus the reproduction or even the reproduction Ives or Flyer that's out there, primarily because the piece in its own look, it looks right. It looks old. There's a certain level of patina. There's a certain level of color. I don't know if it's the lead-based paints versus the paints they use now, but if I took a brand new LTI Blue Comet and set it next to a Lionel Blue Comet, I would take the Lionel original Comet right over the new one, because it eludes the fact that it somehow is that old. It somehow survived this long because people cared about it and because people loved it. So it's like I'm buying a receivership or a kinship to preserving the piece. I know I'm going to die someday. I know this is going to go to somebody else. I can only hope that somebody else appreciates the level of art and creativity that went into manufacturing a piece at this level with the technology that was available in 1930.